Just take a second to look at this animal. I mean, wow. Powerful, graceful, everything about this image just screams wild freedom, right? But the story of the tiger we're talking about today, well, it's a whole lot more complicated, and sadly, a lot less free than what you're seeing here.
In his quiet rage. Just 3 words, but man, do they pack a punch. This little phrase is the entire emotional heart of the poem we're about to dive into. It hints at this huge, simmering conflict that's hiding right there in plain sight. So today, we're going to be deconstructing A Tiger in the Zoo by the poet Leslie Norris. And what this poem does so incredibly well is it paints a picture of 2 different tigers. There's the real one, stuck in a cage, and then there's the imagined one, the one he should be, out in the wild. Let's explore these 2 worlds.
Okay, so first, let's get into the tiger's grim reality. The poet doesn't waste any time at all. He throws us right into the bleakness of zoo life, and you can really feel the confinement.
Here it is, the very first stanza. We meet the tiger, and he's just pacing back and forth in this tiny cage. But you've got to listen really closely to the words Norris chooses here, because every single one is loaded with meaning.
The poetic tricks here are just fantastic. First, you have vivid stripes. It's this incredible splash of natural beauty right in the middle of a dull, man-made prison. Then, pads of velvet quiet. That's a beautiful metaphor, right? His paws, which are built for creeping silently through the jungle, are now totally useless, just padding on a hard floor. And then, the knockout punch. Quiet rage. That's an oxymoron, where you put 2 opposite ideas together. His anger isn't roaring, it's this terrifying bottled-up fury that's just simmering away.
Later in the poem, we get snapped right back to the zoo, and the language gets even more brutal. And that little word, but, at the beginning, that's so important. It's like a daydream of the jungle just got cut short, and we're back in this cold, hard place.
And you can feel how harsh this imagery is meant to be. A concrete cell. It's the total opposite of a living, breathing jungle. And that line, his strength behind bars. Gosh, that's just cruel, isn't it? All that incredible power, trapped and totally useless. And when he's ignoring visitors, that's not just him being bored. It's the only protest he has left. It's a tiny act of rebellion in a world where he has no power at all.
And this is how his day ends. Think about the sounds he hears. Not the sounds of the jungle, right? He hears human sounds of control, a voice on a loudspeaker, the rumble of patrolling cars. In this noisy, artificial world, his only real escape is with his eyes, looking up at the distant, silent, and free stars.
But here's where the poem gets really clever. Norris masterfully breaks away from this awful reality and gives us these flashes, these glimpses of the life the tiger should be living.
See how it starts? He should be. That phrase changes everything. We've instantly shifted from reality to imagination. And here, the tiger isn't a prisoner. He's a predator, completely in his element.
The real magic here is in the words. Just look at those verbs. Lurking, sliding. They're words full of purpose and grace and power. The imagery just comes alive. You can almost feel the long grass and see the shadows. This isn't just a backdrop. It's a whole living world where the tiger has a purpose, a vital role to play.
Now, I know what you might be thinking. Terrorizing the village? That sounds bad. But it's not about being evil. It's about being true to his nature. In the wild, a tiger's power is a force of nature. That fear he inspires, it creates respect. It maintains balance. He's not some villain. He's the king of his own kingdom.
So the big question is, how does Norris make this contrast feel so real and so powerful? Well, it all comes down to the poet's craft, the careful, deliberate way he puts these 2 worlds right next to each other.
When you put the actions side by side like this, the difference is just staggering. In the cage, all his actions are passive and small. He stalks a few steps, he ignores, he hears, he stares. But in the wild, the actions are dominant, powerful, lurking, sliding, snarling, terrorizing. This comparison shows us the real tragedy here. A creature built for action has been reduced to being a passive observer of his own life.
Okay, let's zoom in on these last 2 lines, because this is just pure poetic genius. The poet repeats the word brilliant, and believe me, that is no accident.
So why do it? What's the effect? Well, think about it. The first brilliant is his eyes. They're alive, they're intelligent, they hold a fire that the cage just can't put out. And the second brilliant?
That describes the stars, so distant, so beautiful, they're a symbol of that huge, wild world he's lost. By repeating the word, the poet creates this incredibly powerful link between the tiger's untamable spirit inside and the freedom outside that he can see, but he can never, ever reach. It's just a profoundly beautiful and sad moment.
You know, Leslie Norris's poem isn't really just about one tiger in a zoo, it's bigger than that. It's forcing us to look past the bars and start asking some really big, really uncomfortable questions about captivity itself.
And Norris isn't the only one to write about this feeling of being trapped. The pain and frustration of this tiger, you can hear echoes of it in other really powerful poems, like the famous one by Rainer Maria Rilke about a panther going through the exact same thing.
Just listen to that line from Rilke's poem. For his panther, the cage becomes so absolute that the world outside basically just disappears. It's a kind of psychological death. You know, there's another poet, Peter Niblett, who even gives a tiger a voice to think about the trade-offs, the safety of a cage versus the freedom and danger of the wild. So yeah, the whole issue is really complex.
And that really brings us to the one question that hangs over this entire discussion. This poem, it shows us the deep, quiet suffering of a wild animal in a cage. It makes us face the ethics of how we treat the natural world. So we're left with this thought. For conservation, for education, even for the animals themselves, are there alternatives to zoos? The poem doesn't give us an easy answer. But what it does, brilliantly, is it makes sure we can't just ignore the question anymore.